Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elize Viktoria for you who are new. And let's do a sit-down video today. For the past year, I have not been satisfied with my content here on YouTube. And that has also to do with my personal life. I am starting to feel like myself again. I desire to go back to make biblical teachings again, to the Bible studies and more like in-depth stuff. Really like what I'm passionate about, like sharing the gospel, like sharing the word and really going more into topics and stuff. So be sure to look out for that. For today's video, I have a Q&A for you guys on the topic of missions. I was making a community post a few months ago and I asked you guys if you have any questions on what it's like being a part-time missionary, that you could ask me questions about that. So I have some comments from the community post, as well as my last video I asked if there was some questions. So there were some questions from there as well. So first question is, what led you to become a missionary? A little bit of background story before we begin. My parents actually met through a missionary school in Sweden 25 years ago. My dad has been the central figure in my life when it comes to missions. So I grew up seeing him go out and doing his missions. My mom stayed home with us in our country, and my dad was the one going out and doing missions, as well as sometimes taking us with him on like short trips that was not too far. And we've been seeing him preaching and stuff, and we've been growing up in a home where we're praying for the sick and stuff like that. That's where it started. And actually, when I was a kid, I didn't see myself going into missions myself. I was like, no, that's like, I don't want to do that. Actually, but then like I always loved to travel. I didn't think that I wanted to be a missionary or anything like that. When I really started going deep with the Lord, when I started growing up, basically my missionary journey, I would say, started when I was 17 years old. So I've been doing missions for 7 years. I've been doing missions like in Europe, different places, in Eastern Central Europe. I've been going to Asia a little bit as well the last few years. Yeah. Number 2, what do you love most about doing mission work? It is definitely seeing the impact that it has on the people that you are serving, for sure, because you see how it blesses people and nothing can really replace that. Like the stuff that you're doing when you're at home, like in your country, like you're working, you're going to school, that feels kind of pointless when you're out doing missions. Like you see actually the impact that God has on people's lives. You see people getting healed, delivered, people giving their lives to Christ. So definitely the impact that the gospel has on people, that's for sure the thing that I love the most. Number 3, what is the biggest thing that God has taught you thus far in ministry? God has taught me many things. God has taught me a lot. Huge is trusting in the Lord, having faith. And you cannot do ministry without having faith. You cannot serve God without faith. Not doing things in your own strength or in your own power, that's something that is so hard to learn because we want to have control as humans. Like we want to see like, okay, we should do it like this, like that, like that. Really like, okay, I need to die to my flesh, to my pride, and just let God do his work. Honestly, I've learned a lot of things. Another question is, what is the biggest challenge you face as a missionary? Are there any places you would be hesitant to go as a missionary because of possible safety concerns? Really good question. Really good question. So 1, what's the biggest challenge you face as a missionary? Maybe I would say religious people, because religious Christians have a set mindset here in the West. They have a way that they like to do things. They have like, in the Western church, they are used to doing ministry in a certain way. They're used to having their programs. And as a missionary, you cannot really be stuck in programs. Like, yes, we do plan. Yes, we do try to have somewhat of a schedule. But in missions, it's impossible that everything is going to go according to plan. It's impossible. It's always going to be a change of plan, change of direction, because it's different culture. It's going to be sudden change of schedule, blah, 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 blah. If you're going to be a missionary, you need to be flexible. Being in the Western church, if you're serving in a Western church, that is going to be challenging for you. So for religious people, only following a certain structure of being, okay, this is how we do church, they cannot really understand the way that you work in the same way, if that makes sense. Another challenge that I face, which is more personally for me, I wouldn't say it's a huge thing, but it is because of my age and the fact that I'm not married. So because I am a woman, I'm going around teaching, preaching, and I don't have like the practical safety of going with someone, but I always go with someone. But it can be challenging for me sometimes because I really need to be careful of like not giving any signals to people, because especially in Asia, people read into things that are not even there, and you have to be really careful, not to place yourself in any situations, where it can be misunderstood as that you're interested or anything like that. So that can be challenging for me as a woman, just practically. So that's why it's good to always be or always be with people. But luckily I have always someone with me, like a pastor or like someone, a friend or sister or like family going with me. Next question, are there any places you would be hesitant to go as a missionary because of possible safety concerns? I'm going to be completely honest here. No. For me, I am not scared. I believe that God has given us each a measure of faith for certain things. Me, in some areas, I really have not a lot of faith, to be honest. But when it comes to my personal safety, I don't really have much worry, if I'm going to be honest. So for me, if God tells me, Elize, I want you to go to this country, I don't look at the news. I don't care about what people are going to say. I have been to places where it's not allowed to preach the gospel. And there's a reason why I'm not posting those kind of places online. That's a choice from my part. Not closing that door for me in ministry in those places. If God is calling me to go somewhere, why would I fear for my safety? Because God says, like, fear not, I'm with you wherever you go. So if God is calling me to go somewhere and do something for him, why would I not believe him that he will protect me? Why would I not believe him to protect me? Of course, I always, if I'm going to a new place or if I'm going, I take advice from people who are older than me, who have been there before, who can give me practical advice. Yes, I listen to wisdom. You have to be wise. I have not been concerned in those more dangerous places. I really like Acts 20:24, that none of these things move me, nor do I count my life dear to myself, so that I may finish my race with joy, and the ministry which I received from the Lord Jesus to testify to the gospel of the grace of God. If you believe that God has called you to go somewhere, just relax. Don't worry too much about it's a bit of tumult there, it's a bit of this stuff happening. If God has called you and you have peace of God to go there, you have confirmation to go there, then why are you going to be afraid? The Lord is with you. I am not going to be concerned if God tells me to go somewhere because of safety concerns. Because for me, I have decided this. I have decided to follow Christ. If I'm going to die for the gospel, praise God. I'm ready to do that. That's the thing with being a Christian. You really need to count the cost before you choose to be a Christian. That's the verse. Luke 14:28-29 says, "For which of you intending to build a tower sits not down first and counts the cost, whether you have enough to finish it?" Count the cost of what you're willing to lose when you're going to follow Christ. And I have made my peace with that. That was a long answer to that question, but I think it's really important to talk about, and I don't think many people talk about it, so that's why I'm just sharing my own personal conviction about it. Next question. Could you provide more details about your role as a missionary? Are these missions focused on evangelism? Are they aimed at providing for the needs of the poor? Or are they intended to help certain Christians grow in maturity in their faith? I have been on a few different kinds of missionary trips. I haven't focused as much on the evangelistic part yet. I really am into the Bible, Bible teaching. Teaching in a Bible college I've done, going to maybe an orphanage or practical help. Personal for me, I don't do practical help. I understand there is certain times for that and that can be a tool. But for me, I am more concerned about your spiritual health most important to feed the spirit, to really help people to the light. It's not first and foremost, okay, we're going to give vaccines or we're going to give food or whatnot, like practical stuff. Some people have more of a heart to help those needy, help those poor. But that's not specifically where I am going into. But as I've said, like I've been on different types of missions before. Like some help, but mostly like lately it's more like focused on the spiritual, maturing the church, providing biblical teaching, and especially on faith, on the topic of faith. And always I'm praying for the sick. We're healing the sick, doing deliverance. So that's like my main focus. Has your work as a missionary helped you grow further in your faith in Jesus Christ and in sanctification? Yes, it helps grow you out of your comfort zone. When you're dealing with missions, and especially different cultures, completely different cultures, you are gonna run into some conflicts at some points. Those can be uncomfortable. Sometimes you need to cut ties with some people, and then suddenly you get connected to other people instead. You learn to handle conflict. That's what I've learned, and I'm still learning, even when it's uncomfortable. In general, when it comes to ministry, like since I started ministering, not just in missionary work, but in the church, in worship leading, and in Sunday school teaching, and all the stuff that I've done throughout my life, in general, because I'm in service, I've always taken my walk with Christ really serious. I need to be an example, even if nobody knows about me. That doesn't matter, but when people are gonna know about you, like I need to be of a higher standard. I need to hold myself accountable. I need to be walking in the way of God. Am I perfect? No. Have I made mistakes? Yes. I believe that that will help you. I wouldn't say it's the whole reason, but because like the love you have for Christ will drive you to more holiness. It will drive you to want to walk in that way. Yeah, be a worthy witness, if I should say that. Next question. Do you do missionary work as part of a larger organization or on your own? I am not a part of any organization. Neither was my dad. He never was a part of any organization. He's been doing missions for 25 plus years. When he started out doing missions, it was way harder for him because he didn't have any contacts. But he went by faith. He went with a friend. So they went 2 together or 3 together, because God sent them out 2 by 2. And they just went to a country and believing like, okay, God, you will connect us with people. So building up that through many years, okay, you're suddenly getting connected with that person just through evangelizing, actually. Suddenly you meet a pastor, suddenly you meet that person. And then you're building connections, you're building relationships, and then you meet another one through that church, or some other people are visiting. Or you're going to village with a pastor. Me, I'm not a part of any organization because being a part of an organization is gonna keep you limited. You are gonna do it in a certain way, like they want to do it. You're gonna be restricted a little bit. If you are on your own, it is a lot harder because you need to plan everything yourself. When you're working with God and you really want to do His will, you want to go somewhere, He will provide for you everything that you need. He will provide for you the context, the people, anything. Being a part of organization, I'm not saying it's bad, like you can start out like that, and from those places you're visiting through an organization, you can make your own contacts. So that's why it's good if you're traveling, if you're a missionary or you want to be a missionary, that if you are a part of an organization or if you're part of it, like a Bible school or a mission trip or something, that when you're going to that place, don't be stuck in your group, don't be stuck to only your school, but really try to connect with people in that place so that maybe, who knows, you want to go back someday without the whole organization. Creating lasting relationships with people that you're going to meet is a really good thing, so that you're not just depending on an organization, on a leader to tell you what to do, because we should be flexible. Me, I do missions on my own with the Lord as He's leading. Okay, He will put on my heart, Elize, like, you should go there. It will feel more like a thought, like of the country or like the place, and you will just have it in your spirit for a while. It will be like, and that's just how it is for me. And you feel like, oh, I want to go there, like I should go there. And then you're receiving confirmation that you should go there. And the Lord is working everything out because you trust in Him. All of this is a process of trust. You trust in the Lord where you're going, that He's leading you. I would maybe like to start a missionary school someday. Another question is, how do you know you're being called to be a missionary? Are all of us supposed to be missionaries since we're supposed to spread the good news? Good question. It's not so important to the title of a missionary. Oh, I'm calling you to be a missionary. If you don't know your calling, figure out your calling. What is every Christian called to do? It is to know God and to make Him known. Every single Christian's purpose is to tell other people about Jesus Christ, to share the gospel. That is your first calling. It is not being a worship leader. It is not being a businesswoman. It is not being a carpenter. Your first calling is to spread the gospel to people. Matthew 28:19 says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of age." That's what I'm telling you. God is with you wherever you're going, so don't be scared. And Jesus also said, "Go into all the world, preach the gospel to every creature. He who believes and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not believe will be condemned. And these signs will follow those who believe. In my name they will cast out demons, they will speak with new tongues, they will take up serpents, and if they drink anything deadly, it will by no means hurt them. They will lay hands on the sick and they will recover." That's Mark 16:16-18. That's what I'm saying. Like, when you're walking with the Lord, you don't need to be scared. He is with you. Don't be scared of where you're going. Because we are supposed to be disciples. And what did Jesus tell his disciples? He told them, go and make disciples. Go and make more disciples. So that's your calling. Doesn't matter if you don't think that, okay, maybe I'm not called to do missions. But you're still called to go and make disciples. You're still called to train up other people. Because we have this kind of like self-help church. We're not building an army. We're just having a hospital, like trying to become better. We're a little bit selfish. Like, we're only looking at ourselves. Like, what can I get? What can I receive? I want to grow, like self-help, this and that. But we're not helping other people in growing to become spiritually mature. So how do you know if you're being called to be a missionary? If you're seeking Him, okay, God, what am I called to do? What do you feel God has called you to do? I believe He has placed certain desires inside of you. If you're not sure, you can just try. Just like other types of ministries. The thing with missions is that you can do so many different things. There's always something to do. There's always a task. You can always try different things in missions. There's always different roles you can try. In missions, if you want to see if you're called to missions, try going on a mission trip. And then maybe you will see, oh, this is not for me. Like, I cannot eat certain food. I'm gonna be like this, because if you're a missionary, you need to be adaptable. You need to not be like so picky and too nice on things. Like, you just need to be down to earth, connect with people, not be snobby, like, oh, I want a hotel, I want this and that. Because if you're gonna go from place to place, you have to expect that it's gonna be a little bit uncomfortable at times in the flesh, but still it will feel fulfilling on the inside. So if you're wondering, am I called to be a missionary? Just try going on a mission trip first. See, like, if you like it, try going for a longer time. And see what God says. You step out, you take a step in faith, you let God lead you. God will confirm it to you. And are all of us supposed to be missionaries since we're supposed to spread the good news? If you're thinking about the definition of a missionary, like to go to a different country and spend time there and build something, no, I don't think everyone is supposed to be missionaries. Like I said, everyone is called to go and make disciples. And I believe that most people, you are born in a place. You are placed in a certain place. You're placed in your hometown for a reason, so that you would be the person to preach to your neighbors. Many people are looking to go outside of their countries, that's what I'm seeing, under the excuse of, oh, God called me to go to this country, but what I see is that they're just wanting to make money in another country, and they're calling it, God called me there, but actually they're not doing any of God's work. They're just wanting money, or they just want a comfortable life. That is not being called to do something in that country. You're looking out for your own interests. I believe that God has placed you in your country for a reason. I'm gonna share like a personal thing for me, which I know that my country is not the place that God called me to be. And why do I say that? Because my entire life, I felt like a foreigner in my own country. I don't belong here. I don't fit in here. But when I'm traveling so much, and I really connect with other people from from every country but my own for some reason. And I'm really happy like going around and doing that. And it's like you have that feeling inside of you, in your spirit. It's like, this is not the place where I should be. There's something on your inside that's like screaming, that's like, you're supposed to be somewhere else. I believe that as Abraham, he went to Canaan, God told him this is the land. So I believe that as you're going to somewhere, to a place, God can tell you, here, I want you to stay here. This is the place that I have for you. Because God speaks like that in your spirit, and you just feel it and you just know it. I just always knew that the country I'm born in is not the place where I'm gonna be staying. It's not where I'm gonna have my roots. That's where I'm from, but it's not where I'm gonna be. And then last question. In general, how expensive is it to go on these missions? Is there typically a host family or party to provide lodging for you? Or do you have to make reservations for your own lodging before going on a typical mission trip? Again, this varies depending on the place, depending on the connections you have. If you are in a new place and you don't really know people, it's a bit harder because you might have to pay for a place to stay. Typically, when I do missions, I do it really cheap. Okay, so I don't pay for any 5-star hotel. I'm not going to any fancy place because usually I'm like in a village or something. There's nothing fancy there, but I wouldn't choose fancy anyways because in general, if we're gonna talk money, guys, usually you don't really have money to go on a mission. I'm just gonna be honest for you. That's another part of missions, which people don't talk about, is money. And the reality is that you might not really have any money for doing missions, but you feel, okay, God is calling you to do something. So you're doing it in faith. Okay? So God is telling you, okay, I want you to go there now. And you're like, oh God, I don't really have money for that right now. But you feel like, no, but I'm calling you there. And as you're deciding to, okay, book that ticket, then you get money suddenly. And then like suddenly you had a job which gave you a little bit extra money for that mission trip. Or someone decided to send you something. This is about going in faith. Missions is about going in faith. Is it expensive to do missions? No, it doesn't have to be. Trust me. Like every time I'm talking about how much I spend on missions and this and that, people are like, oh, you spend so little. Like, how are you able to do that? I've been fortunate to grow up in a family where walking in faith is normal. I've seen it work. If you trust God, He will provide for you. When I do missions, I don't have a lot of money. I'm not part of any organization. I don't have people supporting me doing this. When I do missions, like this is why I haven't done it full time yet. I'm working in my own home country and I use the money that I'm working for. So I work to provide for myself in the mission. So I work a job for a few months and then I go on a mission. It's not really that I have a lot of money. I don't. But I just choose to spend my money on going and spreading the gospel because that's what I love to do. If I can, I typically will stay like with the pastor's family, for example. Usually you're taking care of like people maybe cook for you. And that's really a blessing also because you're outside all day and you're like doing stuff, going from meeting to meeting, or you're going from house to house preaching or sharing the word. What I really spend money on is flight ticket is the most huge expense. Then it is fuel if you need to rent a car to go somewhere, and you are gonna be like, at least for me, I'm the person gonna pay for the fuel, for the renting of the car, and then the pastor will bring me to the locations where I'm gonna go. And then 3, it's food. So you need a place to live. If you can live with the pastor, I stay there for free. And you need food. I think it's right to pay for the food. The places I'm going, people don't really have a lot of money, so I'm not going to be an extra expense for them. So I just bless them and I give them money to buy food and make food for me, as well as their family. And then 3, it's the fuel. That's the only stuff that I have expenses on, because I'm not there to have a vacation. If I go on a mission, like a real mission, I'd go and I just do my stuff. I do ministry. I just prepare, spend time in prayer, spend time in preparation, and I just do my stuff. Really, it doesn't have to be expensive, depending also how long you're gonna stay. If you're staying shorter, then yes, it's kind of more expensive because you're paying for maybe an expensive flight. So the shorter you are, the kind of more expensive it will be. And then if you're staying longer, it will kind of be more worth it. I hope that answers your question a little bit about the expenses. At least here in my country, people are not really supporting missionaries. If you have it really in your heart, God, He provides. God is your provider. And He is really like helping me in that. And I am not a person who needs to have it grand, who needs to have expensive stuff, who needs to have it super, super fancy where I'm staying, because I just want to serve the Lord. So people will just say like, oh, it's good what you're doing, but people are not supporting you. They will just look at what you're doing like, oh yeah, that's great, you're doing that. So I hope you enjoyed this little Q&A about missions. And if you're also thinking about going into missions, pray about it, discover if that is what God is telling you to do. Go for it. I mean, I see so many people who also wants to be missionaries, who wants to go places. And I've seen them talk about it for years, saying the same thing, like, oh yeah, I want to go do missions like you, or like I want to go and do it. And all they're ever doing is just talking, and they're making excuses. Like, what are you waiting for? If that's like really in your heart, I think if you have had that thought in your heart for so many years and never done anything about it, because you're scared or because that's out of your comfort zone, I say like, stop being in your comfort zone, go and do something. If that desire really hasn't gone away yet, and you have had it in your heart for so long, you've had it in your spirit for so long, I would say that that's God nudging you in that direction. And you need to act on it, be obedient. And it's so rewarding, so fulfilling. Just living for ourselves here, just going to work, going to school, can have some fruit, but if you're supposed to be doing something and you're not doing it, you'll feel like unfulfilled with your life, because you're like not really like, I want to do this thing, but you're not doing it. So your spirit will feel like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. So don't be scared. Don't be thinking about what people are gonna say. Start praying. Start doing something about it. Yeah, let me know what you thought down below about this video, about this topic, if it was interesting for you, and I'll see you very, very, very soon again with another video. God bless you.